steely resolve, and sure grittiness.
It starts with an attitude. We need swagger, okay? Regardless of what happens out there. Doesn't matter. Keep your swagger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Five Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're your hosts today, TJ and Zach.
Hey.
So we got part one of the Metro preview. We're going to go through Pittsburgh, Washington, Columbus, and the New York Islanders today. We got part two coming out later this week, where we're going to be talking Carolina, the New York Rangers, Philadelphia, and the New Jersey Devils. If you guys want to get in touch with us in the meantime, we're on Twitter at FHF Hockey. We got mock drafts 3 times a week. You can find those links in the Discord. We got a big old trade to announce. A blockbuster.
That's the best place to start. It's the only place to start.
Yeah, so Matthew Tkachuk to Florida for Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar. On the surface, that's all that matters. There was picks going, one way, the other way, Cole Schwint, prospects, whatever. For fantasy, for redrafts, this is all we care about. Tkachuk, Huberdeau, Weegar. Big trade. Just on, what do you think? I don't know if I really want to get into winners, because I don't think we're going to be able to tell just yet. But what did you think of the trade?
I think we can talk about winners, and I think the winners are the Calgary Flames.
Yeah.
They got rid of a player who said, hey, just so you know, I ain't signing here. I'm not going to be on your team in the future. You're not going to be able to lead me in with, I'm sure they tried to get him on a multi-year deal. It didn't work. So he said, I'm not going to be here. So they were able to trade a player that does not want to be there for a 100-point player in Jonathan Huberdeau, a first-pairing defenseman, and someone who can run their power play in Mackenzie Weegar.
You think? All right, we'll get there, but
yeah,
on the surface, there we are.
You know what I mean? And a first-round pick. I think that it's easy to talk winners and losers. But also, I think that Matt Tkachuk is a winner here, too, because now he gets to go be on a line with Alexander Barkov.
In a tax-free Florida. So it definitely
I
makes
actually
sense for
thought
him
I had that written down, too.
Yeah. It makes sense for him. I think, Huberdeau, McKenzie, if we're just talking hockey here, they're on the last years of their deals, both of whom came out and said, we would be interested in signing here long-term. If they don't, Florida looks really smart. But if they do, Calgary runs away with this so easily.
Why if they don't? Because if they don't, TJ, then all Calgary has to do is flip them at the trade deadline.
It's true.
And get more assets.
There's a lot of ways.
There is. I feel like they can't lose in this situation. They either sign one or both of those players long term, or they flip them at the trade deadline and just get more things.
Even if they're retaining 50%, it's only for a few months at that rate. So it is loser proof from the Flames. It looks a lot better for Florida if they don't re-sign with them.
The Florida Panthers, they're in all-in mode. Like, they're going all in.
When's their next first-round pick? I think it's like 2026.
Yeah, well, so that one we just talked about. And also, you have to think about the fact that they didn't sign, players like, Claude Giroux. And re-sign him. They didn't re-sign Ben Sherratt, who they picked up, both players at the trade deadline last year and got nothing for it. So they lost Owen Tippett there. They lost first-round picks in 23 and 24, and then a third-round pick in 2024 as well. Like, they've given up so much, and, now they have Matt Tkachuk to show for it.
It's
what I mean?
Scorched earth, yeah. It's been not good. Like, if you do the old Chuck Fletcher exercise on Bill Zito right now, it doesn't look very good. But what I can say is the Florida Panthers are extremely young. They traded Huberdeau is going to be 30. Tkachuk, if he's not 30 already, Tkachuk is like 25. And, now they have Tkachuk locked up for a long time, 8 years. I think it was 9.5. So, they've got a young core to the point that they believe so much in these guys that they pitched all their picks, like scorched earth when it comes to it. So they are all in. Florida gets Matthew Tkachuk. I want to start here. Do you think Matthew Tkachuk is a 100-point player?
On a line with Alexander Barkov, if he's playing exclusively with him, yes, I think he has it in him.
I think he's got to get there again.
I think point per game, if that is, the echelon you want to get to, I think that's an easy over. 100 points, that's a lot.
We're going to be talking about all three of the former top line Calgary guys this episode because we got Columbus, so we're going to be talking Johnny Gadreau. We're going to be talking Elias Lindholm when it comes to, Calgary, what Calgary gets. And now we're talking Matthew Tkachuk. I think it's important to start that if that line stayed together in Calgary next year, I would have all three of these guys projected for less points than they scored this year. So just right there, our expectations off the top, I think, need to be shaved a little bit. All three of these players. Tkachuk, his last 6 years, which I think is his entire career, his point paces, 104, 62, 72, 78, 59, 51. Those first 2 years, 59, 51. He's coming into the league. He's getting ready. He's still on the second line. And then things ramp up towards the end. Now, that 78-point year, I think it was when Giordano won the Norris, or maybe it was the 72-point year. So Calgary's done this a few times where they just go nuts for a year. And I think that's what we saw this year. We're going to talk about it with Gadreau, with Lindholm, with Tkachuk. All three of these guys, I think maybe we would have seen career years. Tkachuk's got the most runway, so he has a chance to break his career. Is he good? Yes. Is he in his prime? Yeah. Is he a 100-point player? I don't know. Like consistently.
Is Alexander Barkov a 100-point player?
Yes, he is. But listen, Gadreau, Lindholm, Tkachuk versus Tkachuk, Barkov, and who? Rudolph Balcers, Sam Reinhart, Anthony Duclair. Like, it's a good line, but the weakest link stands out a little bit more in Florida. That's what I'm trying to get at. So I do have his projections down a little bit.
So they need to make another move? Because the only other
with
answer
what money?
The only real answer is Carter Verhaeghe.
Yeah, Verhaeghe, or I like Reinhardt up there. Duclair, he won't be back till January, so I think eventually maybe he's that top line beneficiary, that sidecar on that line. It sounds like it. I'm reading between the lines here, but it sounds like we both think Tkachuk is the top line guy.
Absolutely.
Whereas Huberdeau ran his own line on the second.
What about this? And I'm just saying, so since that third spot is a question mark, man, that sounds like, what we've done in the past with when Marner and Matthews are playing.
Yeah.
Just whoever that third person is, I'm fucking streaming that person. Mm-hmm. So if that's going to be the case, I don't care who it is. If it's Rudolph Balcers, TJ, I swear to Christ, I would pick him up if he's playing with Barkov and Tkachuk. Yes,
I wouldn't blame you. Yeah, I would suggest you did. All right, so Huberdeau played almost exclusively on his own line. Tkachuk, as it, just in my brain right now, I'm thinking he's going to be on the top line. I don't know if he can drive his own line the way that Huberdeau can. So that's not good for whomever is playing on the second line. Like, that was Bennett, that was a little bit of Reinhardt. There were different guys playing on that second line with Huberdeau, but it's going to lower their respect. Like, it's a net loss for everybody on the second line. Tkachuk and Barkov, that's a stellar duo, but you're losing that superstar split with 1 and 2, which sucks. On the power play, losing Huberdeau hurts. He led the Florida Panthers with 38 power play points. He led them by 7. Next closest was Sam Reinhart at very surprising 31, and then Barkov at 26. Huberdeau was the largest factor in Florida's power play, which ranked 5th. Tkachuk had 29 power play points. It would have been good for second on Florida, which is pretty solid. Lindholm had 19. Gadreau had 25. So both of these players led their respective teams on the power play. Tkachuk's 3-year average is point per game, just as a floor, which is, I think, we can probably get. Like, he's moving from arguably the best line in hockey last year to a line with Barkov, who's, good in his own right, but we just don't know what that third piece is yet. Is it good? Is it somebody that's, just feeding off of them and contributing nothing? Is it a Remora, or is it somebody that can help? Was that a good one? I think that was a good one.
I like you using all those numbers to prove my point. I've already said that I think that Florida lost this They definitely lost this. They gave up so much, and all they got was Matt Tkachuk.
Tkachuk saw about the same amount of even strength time on ice as Barkov, so I'm assuming that time on ice stays about the same. Depending on what new head coach Paul Maurice does, that's another curveball in the whole mix here. The power play in Florida, I mean, Tkachuk's got to be on power play one. He played in the right circle. He did a lot at the net front, but that's where Reinhart was, who for second on the team in power play. I mean, you could either switch Reinhart to the half wall, or you could put Tkachuk there. Tkachuk was a lefty. Huberdeau was a lefty. So just put him in Huberdeau's spot on the left circle.
He loves those deflections, and he's good at them. I'd put Tkachuk there. I'd have him with his bumper.
What gets even weirder is, this opens up a spot. Giroux was on the top power play last year. Opens up a spot on the top power play that you would figure would go to Sam Bennett, who would be perfect in a net front role. So now you have three guys that are net front. What do you do? 3 and 2, all three guys on the net front. I don't know. Like it's really hard to project their power play right now. I can tell you the people
have all of them up there and just have Alexander Barkov and Aaron Ekblad just throwing shots at the net. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, 3 guys to clean up. I like Bennett to get that. On paper, his name fits those other 4 players that are on that top power play, but then you have 3 net front guys, and maybe the dynamic just doesn't work. Maybe they try and get somebody else up there. It's going to be maybe Verhaeghe. It very well could be. So watch out. And Bennett might not be a lock for up there because, I would put him in net front, and there's already 2 other guys that can do that. What else do you see? Like, the split superstar approach it's a net loss for line 2. Bennett, Lindell, Reinhart, even maybe. Who is it? But on the off chance that Tkachuk and Barkov don't click, what do you see happening with a season long like that?
Well, then you'd have to try to split them up. But at the same time, I think they're hurting just as much on the defensive end as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like they are. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Gustav Forsling, but I like Gustav Forsling much more as a second-line defenseman rather than a top pairing.
I don't know. Like, you do the same trade. You take Uyghur out. I think Calgary still wins this. Like, why did they have to have Uyghur in there? It's so weird.
I can only imagine it's because Florida didn't feel like they were going to be able to re-sign him.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is, it's not like they really got anything for him. They're just dumping, they're just dumping cash, really.
It's weird. Yeah, so we both like whoever that right wing one is. Line 2, they're losing Huberdeau. That sucks. But let's get into Uyghur, which is where I think we were headed. Uyghur and Ekblad were line mates most of the time. Like, they were on a pair together. Huge for Uyghur's even strength totals. He was ranked 5th in the entire league in even strength points over the last 2 years. Only Yossi, Letang, Makar, and John Carlson are ahead of Mackenzie Uyghur at even strength. Think about that. He's tied with Devontae's, just ahead of Victor Hedman, Shea Theodore. Like, this guy is good. How much of it, was a result of playing with, number 1, the Florida's best players, and 2, playing with Ekblad?
Well, now he's going to be playing with Calgary's best players. But at the same time, Ekblad is really good. Like, I like Aaron Ekblad a lot. So he's not going to have that same look up in Calgary. So you do have to be worried about that. Like, any team that has Alexander Barkov, like, I'm going to take the one playing with Alexander Barkov.
For sure.
Wouldn't anybody?
I think so, too. I mean?
And who is he going to be playing with? Is he going to be playing with Noah Hannafin, who is more of an offensive defenseman? Or is he going to be, with a Rasmus Anderson, who, can just be out there and focus on defense? I think that's what it comes down to.
I would have those guys flip-flopped, but I don't know. I haven't looked at the metrics between those 2 defensemen. What do you think? We both kind of think Forsling is going to be the guy that takes that pairing.
Yes.
Uyghur, in terms of even strength points per 60, Uyghur is 7th and Forsling is 13th. So it's not crazy to think that Forsling could be seeing, those 45-ish point paces that Uyghur's been putting up over the last, rather than the 35-point paces that he's been doing. As a hockey team, that sucks. That's not like, your defense looks a little bit worse without Uyghur, but just for Forsling stock, I think it goes up considerably. He's not much different in the way of offensive generation. It's between Forsling and Montour for power play too as well. So I just don't know how much we should be talking about Forsling.
I mean, I liked Gustav Forsling even last year for
He had
stream.
streaks, man. He had streaks.
Yeah, he definitely was 100% worth a stream. Now he might be like he's not. I don't think he's going to get drafted like Mackenzie Weegar did. But at the same time, I think that he could be a viable hold, possibly.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I'm checking his periphery right now. He doesn't really hit or block too much, but I wonder he had really, really good even strength deployment last year. 45 hits, 86 blocks. It's really, man, got to bump those numbers up, man. That's rookie shit.
But like a 40-point pace, which is not bad for, someone who I didn't see coming out the pipe. Like I saw the Mackenzie Weegar thing happening a while ago, but not Gustav Forsling.
All right, man. In Calgary, this definitely, getting Jonathan Huberdeau softens the blow for our guy, Elias Lindholm. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Huberdeau gets like 60 to 65 assists. He hasn't been under 90-point pace in 5 years. This year, he had the 118-point pace, 85 assists, over an assist a game, 38 power play points. He's going to be lining up with the shot volume darlings in Toffoli and Lindholm. Lindholm's good, but he's not Barkov good. Calgary they were gonna come back down to earth, regardless of whether or not Gadreau or Tkachuk stayed. That's something that I really believe. Huberdeau, he essentially replaces Gadreau in terms of points and styling. Tkachuk is still gone, so I think Lindholm needs to be adjusted accordingly. Softens the blow, it doesn't erase it. Instead of a Gadreau and a Tkachuk, right now you just have a Gadreau. Who do you like for that third spot? Another pretty enticing sidecar here. It's between two people. It's between, I think we're on the same page here, Toffoli and Mangiapane, in that order for me.
I guess I want to see it be Toffoli, because I think that second line kind of sees Mangiapane. The second line doesn't need a Tyler Toffoli, is I guess where I'm going to go with this. You know what I mean? Because they have Blake Coleman on that line. They don't need Tyler Toffoli and what he's good at. That top line definitely can. Elias Lindholm definitely can. I think that would work out. But the whole thing is, Andrew Mangiapane would do just fine.
All right, here's another question. Who gets the power play time? They lost Gadreau and Monahan, or not Gadreau, Gadreau and Tkachuk. They're still net -1 for top power play bodies. You think it's Toffoli?
I think it's Toffoli. He's just gonna he throws shots.
He was on the power play last year, so he was one of those. So it was the top line, Toffoli and Rasmus Andersson. Now you're going to have the top line, which could include Toffoli, still have one spot. For me, it's between like Sean Monahan might come back. He could potentially.
I think
get
Sean
that.
Monahan was already a given for the top power play.
He's been having a rough time, but hopefully they fix his hip. Maybe something happens. It could be Mangiapane. I think he's next up in line, depending on Monahan.
Man, I don't know if it's just me, but maybe I'm just a dick. Like I'm low on Andrew Mangiapane. Like, because I'm just I'm over it. I'm over Andrew Mangiapane.
I said the same thing about Rob Thomas last year, and look what happened.
Like, he upsets me.
This is the year. We know it's going to happen now. Overall, I guess we didn't talk about this with Tkachuk, but what do you think for his value? Overall, does it go up or down?
It goes up because he's playing with Barkov. Barkov, he's that's it. He's a top 10 player, I think, in the league, Alexander Barkov. Like top 10 offensive player, I guess. But he's a top 10 forward. If you can play with a player like that, it matters.
I think moving to that level of offense helps too. Like, I have it later here. Florida is the highest scoring team in the NHL since Lemieux and Yager were on the Penguins in 95-96. So
we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. I think expectations need to be altered going into it. I think you should be happy with an 85-point season, which is kind of where I have him. Huberdeau, on the other hand, what do you think for him? Like, does this raise his value? Does it drop it?
Well, he's getting to play with, he's going to be a top line, so he's going to be playing with other top line guys instead of a mismatch of a top six that he was in before. So he's used to driving his own play. I'm not worried about that. So I think it's kind of I guess I kind of want to say like middle of the road. I don't think it's good or bad, to be honest with you, because I think he can drive his own play, and that's what matters. He wasn't relying on Barkov.
I got the small drop, but the point you're bringing about maybe extra time on ice moving up to that top line, it might wash out. So I might be right there with you as like, this is kind of a push. It's not to say he's in a worse spot or that Huberdeau's a worse player, but part of me believes that we just witnessed Huberdeau's career year. He's 30 years old. He just put up 115 points, 118 points. Yeah. I think we just witnessed a career year. So to saying he's going to build on it or he's going to repeat is hard to do just off the bat, even if he was still in Florida.
I think that he's a 100-point player.
I think he is too. He's 95-ish to 100. And I think he's going to stay right around there. Toffoli shoots a lot. Lindholm shoots a lot. To say that both those guys can't get 60 goals between the two of them, 30 and 30, Huberdeau go an assist a game almost. Like, I think he can do like 65 assists, but even there, like, all he's got to do is score 25 goals and he's at 90 points. I think it's pretty good on all fronts. I think, all of these guys should have been adjusted downwards going into next year, which sucks. Like I career years from Gadreau, probably from Huberdeau, Lindholm, even, I don't know. Who runs the power play? Do you think it's Weegar? Do you think it's Hanifin? Do you think it's Rasmus Andersson? Like, Sutter couldn't even decide last year between Andersson and Hanifin. So I think Weegar's got a good chance as any.
I've already said I think it's going to be Weegar. I said I think it like way early on when we started talking. Yeah,
yep,
that's what I see him as, and that's why I think Calgary would have wanted him involved. I think
he's going to fit really well.
Yeah,
I think Sutter's going to like him a lot.
And I don't think that he's going to be asking for a ton of money to re-sign. You know what I mean? He's making a little over 3, I believe, this year. So, if you could get him at like a 4.5, 5 mil a year on
that'd be a steal.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
I see like 6 in his future, 6 or 7 even.
I would even 7 would be getting pricey. I could do 6. I could sleep at 6 for sure. For sure.
So between Rasmus Andersson and Noah Hanifin, there was like a 2-to-1 split on the power play. So a third of the time went to Hanifin, 2/3 of the time went to Andersson. There was some internal conflict going there. My only deterrent from thinking Weegar is a lock for the top power play is that he really didn't get used in the power play at all. Even when Weegar went down, or not Weegar, when Ekblad went down, Weegar would be like, then he would be power play 1. So what does that do? I used all strengths, points per 60 here, which is not what I typically do, but Weegar, he didn't play on the power play, so I didn't want to use power play minutes. But Weegar, points per 60, 23rd in the league. Hanifin, 33rd. Andersson, 39th. Kylington, 49th. So just in terms of offensive generation, Weegar is the best already. And Hanifin even more so than Andersson at this point. But I don't know how it's going to fit in on the power play. I wonder if they, give him his first taste. Maybe they want to rub it in over in Florida. Like, see, this is what you can do with Weegar if you put him on the power play. And, the more that I say that, the more I think that that's what's going to happen. They really want to trot these guys out and say, like, we ran away with this trade. So Weegar, just being a great even strength producer on top of everything, if he gets top power play, what kind of production are we talking about here?
I want to see Shillington do better too. I do. I like Oliver Shillington.
Yeah, he was 49th. So did I say Kylington? That's my mistake. I think 50 points, I'd be happy with that. Yeah, I think it's possible. He's really good at even strength play. If he gets top power play, I think 50 is a lock. Weegar going from Florida, which has been the highest, point scoring team in almost 30 years. They're the most offensive team since 95, 96 Penguins. That's when Lemieux had 161 points, 2 points per game. Jágr had 149 points. Ron Francis played hockey and had 119 points. Like, just for reference to how long ago this was. Him moving to Calgary is going to be good, but I think, without that high flying offense, 50 points without power play is going to be really tough. If he gets it, I'm in. All right, let's leave the trade in the books. What say you? Let's move to Columbus. What team do you want to do? I don't mind scrolling.
No, we can do Columbus. I'm there. I'm already scrolled down. It's not like I got 17 pages to scroll through.
Columbus, they had a tumultuous offseason. They brought in Gadreau, they signed Eric Branson, and they lost Bjorkstrand as a result of both. But I'm blaming Branson here. They had a really good draft. They drafted David Jiricek as their first rounder, and then that was the one they got from Chicago for Seth Jones. And then they drafted Denton Mateychuk with their own first round pick. A couple of defensemen, lefty-righty, solid. I think they're doing really good for themselves. They have a hell of a pipeline. We'll talk about it when we get to the prospects a little bit. They finished 21st in the NHL, 37, 38, and 7, 14th in goals for per game, 24th ranked power play. Questions surrounding the team. Who plays center with Gadreau and Laine? Now that they have Laine locked in, who plays center?
Do I have 10 minutes to figure this out?
I guess.
Because I might need all of these 9 minutes and 50 seconds left, because I gotta say, I just don't freaking know. It's not like they're
not flush.
Any room available to go out and get somebody else, as far as I know. So they have a really weak down the middle. You have Jack Roslovic, Boone Jenner, Cole Sillinger, and Sean Corrali. You guess it's Roslovic, but he, like I said before, he's awful at face-offs. He's really bad.
42% in his career, yeah. He's bad.
And that's something you need to be good at to be a first-line center. And Johnny Gaudreau wants the puck, and so does Patrick Laine. So, I get having a person that can defer to these two good players on your wing that are going to score your goals for you, but you got to have the puck to do it.
I'm going to ask you this same question when we're done talking about Columbus, and I think by the end I'll have you convinced that it's Boone Jenner.
I mean, I'm already kind of leaning Boone Jenner, just for the sole fact of he has an above 50% face-off percentage for his career. You can shell me that.
Let's move in. Johnny Gadreau. The conversation with those expectations, I already kind of outlined it before. They need to start with this. If he was still in Calgary, I think 115 points would have been hard to sustain. His 3-year average, 83 points. The 3 years between the Calgary Flames, where they wind up in the standings, and the Blue Jackets, where they wind up in the standings, I think they're separated by 4 or 5 teams. And considering how Columbus has looked for the last 3 years, they were good, they were really bad, and then they were kind of in the middle. I think to say that Columbus and Calgary, where they are right now, is close. I think Calgary's better, but I think they're closer. Close enough to the fact that I think, that 3-year average of 83 points is fair to copy paste and put right on Johnny Gaudreau right now. I think he's going to be right in that 75, 85 point range. Point per game seems very doable. He's got Laine across from him, as a trigger man to absolutely complement Johnny's elite playmaking abilities. It seems like a match made in heaven. What do you got for Johnny?
That he's playing with, a way lesser talent down the middle with than Elias Lindholm was. And I understand the Patrick Laine part of it, because you have to pencil in Patrick Laine for, 80, 90 points, and I get that. And a bunch of goals. He's going to get assists and everything like that. But in Calgary, he had two other players that were 80, 90, 100-point players. He does not have that here. So you can't tell me that you think that... I mean, I don't think he's a 115-point player either. But I have him right, kind of like the 95-100. I had him at least 90 anywhere he was, and that's still the case, but I don't think he's getting over 100. I'll take the under on that big time.
I'll take the under on 100. I had him right at 83. That's where I had him kind of.
Oh, okay. I'll take the over on 83 because I could see 90 happen. Because I think that between him and, I think they could both be 90-point players. But I agree. I think it's Boone Jenner. Or at least I hope so. I hope.
I'll have you convinced. We're not there yet, because I think Laine and Werenski are still above him in the targets here. But what do you like about Laine? Having Johnny Gaudreau is going to be great for him. His 3-year average just for goals is 30. It's 31 goals or something. And I think that's an easy over to punch too.
Yeah, I think it's going to work out just fine for Patrick Laine, because he never really had anybody of this. Well, he never had anybody of this caliber. So he is getting a huge boost in my mind.
I wonder, what would you think of, like, if I threw out a Blake Wheeler comparison? Because Blake Wheeler is a great disher too.
I like the fact that so Patrik Laine has started to change his game a little bit in the past. I would say, like, probably since even a little bit after he got to Columbus. So I would say a year and a half, he's kind of been turning into a different player and has been kind of adopting the Columbus way of doing things by, playing as a team, because that's not what it was in Winnipeg when he was there. And he wasn't interested.
Just going to score goals and go home.
Yeah. He just wasn't interested. He wanted to get his 40 goals and that's it. Now he's going to have someone in Johnny Gadreau that's going to be also moving the offense along. He's not so weighed down by the fact that he has to be the only one scoring goals, Patrik Laine. You know what I mean? And I like that for him. So I'm actually real big on Patrik Laine this year. And then you said before, we do have that other third wheel situation.
Who would your third target be? I'm assuming Gadreau and Laine are number 1 and 2. Who would number 3 be?
Honestly, probably Zach Kruenski.
Yeah, that's who I had too. Really quiet, great year. Like 58-point pace, really good shot volume, like great shot volume. 14 power play points. You add Gadreau.
That's what I'm worried about, though. That's actually what I'm worried about. That he had 40,
the power play.
He had 14 power play points. It was, out of the 48 points that he had, this 30% of his points were on the power play. And that was the number 24 power play. So I'm a little worried about that.
Well, don't you think that, you add Gadreau, that boosts Laine. I think there's a trickle-down effect. And I think we could see Werenski hit 20 power play points this year, possibly even flirt with 60 points. Like, that's 2 more points. He had a 58-point pace last year. So I think 20 power play points, 60 points, really good shots, okay periphery. I love Werenski this year. He put up a really quiet 58-point pace. Mm-hmm. No one's really talking about him as like a solid tier 2, maybe in back end of tier 2 option. Really sneaky pick. I'd love to see his ADP as soon as we get some of that data together. A big enough sample size. I want to check that out. This is where I convince you it's Boone Jenner. You ready?
What, for the next up?
For the next up and for 1C.
I'm open to 1C. I think I've already convinced myself.
All right, I'm going to convince the listeners now. He's my bet for 1C. He's not sexy like Sillinger or even Roslovic, but he was the most often 1C last year. Roslovic took over it, around game 60, but that was because Jenner got hurt. He did well with it. He put up 18 points in 22 games, a 67-point pace, but that was on the back of 12 goals and a 25% shooting percentage during that range. Jenner put up a 61-point pace. Now, if they want the Gadreau-Laine duo to thrive in the offensive zone, Roslovic's career 42% face-off win percentage is not going to cut it. Jenner's 54. Jenner bangs, which is going to come in handy when you're sharing the ice with Johnny Gadreau, who's 5'9", and people start to side-eye him. Jenner put up those 61-point pace, so 6 points shy of what Roslovic did in the same role. So I'm going to ask you a really reductive question, and kind of sarcastically, because you're already on my side here, but to the listener, rhetorical question. What's more important to Columbus? 6 points over the course of an 82-game season, which is 0.07 points per game, or somebody that's good at faceoffs, he's the captain of the team, he throws bodies around, he's great at puck battles, he can go get the puck for those 2 offensive guys where Roslovic can't. Anybody that looks at Gadreau sideways, he's going to throw the body. Really good net front presence. He's got years more experience. It's got to be Jenner. I'm targeting him in the late rounds of every single draft. Like, number 1, he's great in Cats League, so I think he's going to be really important there. I think across the board, Jenner is somebody that I am 100% targeting and want to leave draft day with Jenner on my team. Love this. 61-point pace, and then you add Johnny Gadreau. I feel weird saying it, but I think 70 points is there, man.
That would be something. I'd be excited if that was the case.
Jenner had a really good year this year, 61-point pace. I think, if he puts that together again, 70 points with Gadreau there. 9 points because Johnny Gadreau, I think, I don't know. I think 70 points is there. It's got to be Jenner. Watch the training camp lines, but here's my bet right now. It's going to be Jenner.
You had me at face-off percentage.
All right, who do you like next?
I guess I like, as far as draftable players next on the Columbus Blue Jackets, I guess I'm taking Elvis Merzlikins.
Okay, yeah.
I'll take Elvis. He would be my next up. He did have 27 wins. Was not fantastic this year, but was over 900. He was also had a 3.22 goals against average. A couple of shutouts, a handful of roast beef sandwiches. But, it seems like they are just totally off Jonas Korpisalo. Like, Corpy got very few games this year. It was just not like, it was not a Korpisalo-like year. He made no push to, get that spot back.
What do you see the volume share? What do you think that is?
It's looking more like a 70-30. Even though I wish it wasn't. Because I really do like Jonas Korpisalo. I really do. I wish he was on a different team so he could go. I wish Jonas Korpisalo was on, the freaking Leafs.
Yeah, that would be good.
Prefer that. That would be awesome.
I had 65-35, so I'm right there with you. Merzlikins has been taking more of a share lately and could easily pull volume. You add somebody like good Branson, it's going to be good for the defense and good for him. I remember that quote last year. I think it was Brad Larson said, we're going to play Merzlikins every game. And then they didn't, but they said they were going to. So I think what they want is to make Merzlikins the starter and not the 1A. So I think there's going to be shift from that tandem effect back to a starter. And to be honest, I'm starting to see this across the NHL. I know the narrative has always been the tandem, but think about the tandems that we've talked about. Dallas, that tandem's gone. It's Ottinger. It's Ottinger and Wedwood. That is gone. Boston, Swayman, Ullmark, that's still kind of a tandem. Samsonov and Vanacek was a tandem, but now that's Kemper straight. Talbot is there in Ottawa. Fleury and Talbot was a tandem, but now they have a starter. So I think the narrative is shifting back towards starter. And I don't know why. Because I thought tandem made so much sense for load management and things like that.
I guess it doesn't make as much sense when paydays start coming around. And trying to keep both of those two goalies that you've been giving time to maybe a little harder than you thought. What about the Islanders are still a tandem as far as I'm concerned?
Are they?
I think so.
Are they? Because Sorokin, I think he had 53 games last year. Yeah, I think he's going to get more this year.
He had the bulk of the games.
Yeah, no more tandem. It's gone. And that was a Trotz thing where Lane Lambert's in. I think that tandem's gone.
Sorokin had a ton of fucking shutouts too, but a bunch of roast beef. We'll get into that. We'll get into that
for sure. We talked about the Columbus pipeline. They're great. They have Tarasov waiting in the wings. He's dealing with a surgery. Kent Johnson, we're probably going to see him. Kirill Marchenko. We could see Kirill Marchenko. We could see Igor Chinnikov, Corson Kuhlman's. They have, they added Matejchuk. They added Juracek. They are covered at every position, and it's incredible. Jarmo Kekalainen. Top 5, man. You gotta have him in the conversation, the GM of the year. Already. Pittsburgh, ready?
Sure.
I think Pittsburgh's so easy. Their core has been the same. You could go, I challenge you to do this. Go back and listen to our team previews from last year. And I want to know how different the Pittsburgh preview from last year is to this year. The top 5 is exactly the same. All the main fantasy targets. For a lot of it, the streamers are pretty much the same roles. It's that top 6, middle 6 guys that are on power play too that are kind of relevant. They brought in Petrie. They got rid of Matheson. They brought in Ty Smith. They got rid of John Marino. They almost lost Malkin to free agency. They finished 12th. They got ousted by, I think it was Boston in the first round.
By the way, what's different about this list is, at least for me, Malkin is way down. I'm not
at the bottom of that.
I have
power play guys.
I have drafted your own risk with right underneath Evgeny Malkin's name.
Yep. Regular season, they finished 12th, 46, 25, and 6. They were 11th in goals for. Their power play ranked 19th at 20.2. And you just left wondering how much is left to give here. They've been first round exits for a little bit. Hextall is obviously doubling down on the core, wants to see how much more he can get out of there. Main fantasy targets here: Crosby, Letang, Gensel, Rust, Malkin. That's my top 5.
You know, one thing I was actually surprised about seeing, they were number 6 on shots on goal per game. Number 6 in the entire league on shots on goal per game. I was very surprised to see something like that. I will say that I am a little disappointed that they couldn't keep a player like Evan Rodriguez, who I thought was fantastic on that team. And I'm excited to see what Rodriguez can do elsewhere, but I'm not so sure. But for me, it is Crosby, Gensel, Letang, Rust, and then Jari, because Evgeny Malkin is out of my top 5. I'll take Jari before I take Malkin.
Yeah, I think so too.
And honestly, I'm actually, not even close. Malkin isn't even close to my top 5, because I'd rather put Raquel there. I think Raquel is going to have a fantastic year. He had 13 points in 19 games when he played with Pittsburgh. It raises expectations for me for next year. And if he stays healthy and on a line with Sidney Crosby and Jake Gensel, who, they've always kind of wanted to put Brian Rust on that second line because everybody wants to play with him because he's so damn good. I think that Rickard Raquel could really kind of take hold of that spot that nobody's been able to take hold of. The Jason Zucker thing didn't work. You know what I mean? They tried to put him on that top line, and it doesn't work. It doesn't look right. So I actually really, really, really like Rickard Raquel, and I bet you can get him at a fucking discount too.
He'll be a steal. I think he's first up in line if any of those top power play guys go down too. So, I think it was Rodriguez last year. They experimented with Kapanen, who's still with the team, but I think both those guys are streamer level. Like, Carter is a streamer, depending on who goes down, obviously. But I wonder, Malkin, injury prone, has only played about 60 to 65% of their available games over the last 3 years. He's just so often injured, and I think his ADP is gonna, it's gonna fall as a result. When he does play, he plays solid. He had a really bad year 2 years ago, but he came back above point per game. Ugh. I have Malkin ahead of Raquel. I do. And I think that's just, based on point per game and, what he's going to do on a per game basis. I think it's going to be higher. These guys are so easy. Like the only real interesting tidbit that I want to talk to you about is Chris Letang. Sneaky good season. You always get him at tremendous value because he has been.
I had him at number 3.
He's on the IR all the time. Is he still injury prone? Over the last 3 seasons, he played 93% of available games. I think he's somebody worth targeting, especially if he's still carrying that injury prone label into your drafts. Like, nobody wants to touch him because, it's Letang, he's going to be on the IR. Maybe that's not the case anymore. Maybe he's turned a corner and just found something that works for him, or the whole time it was bad luck and he's just getting good luck right now. I don't know. I love Letang for what he brings to the table, especially if his ADP reflects what it was last year. So, man, love what he's put together. Crosby, so easy to project. Like, things have been saying for so long. Yeah, easy point per game over, probably 90, even to 100.
That's the thing. Sidney Crosby is your 100-point guy. Jake Gensel is your 90-point guy. And crazy, damn it about it, Chris Letang is your 70-point guy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Brian Russ, I'd slot him in at 80 points, but he is actually also very. I love Brian Rust, especially because he's a right winger. So he is a fantastic right winger that's going to shoot 3 times a game, on net, and could get you 80, possibly 90 points.
I'd do 70-80 for Rust, but I know you're higher on him than I am. Let's talk about their streamer level guys.
Not to love Jeff Carter. Jeff
Petrie. What about Petrie? Do you think he's power play too?
I have Jeff Carter before Jeff Petrie.
Okay. Well, I didn't really have any order to him. I'm just throwing names out here. But
the Jeffs.
Jeff Carter, the only thing I wrote next to him is just streamer. That's it. He's tri-eligible. That's great. If you're in a 16-team league, I could see some use for him. But, the main format being 12-team, I don't know. He's a streamer guy.
Jeff Carter is the Stanley streamer of the week.
What do you think about Jeff Petrie? Is he power play too, or is it some guy named Ty Smith?
I think it's Ty Smith. Number one,
could even be both.
It could. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, then you're kicking someone off that second power play unit, and honestly, that second power play unit isn't all that bad. It would have to be Jason Zucker.
What it
But
showed.
honestly, we'll see about Jeff Petrie because I feel like maybe he's going to get a jolt of energy. On a new team, I feel like he might get a little bit of a jolt here. So I like that for him.
Yeah, he was really good under Martin St. Louis. So I think there was a lot there that didn't click with Ducharme that we should kind of just throw out. Obviously, deployment was ripe for the taking in Montreal, where he's not going to have that. He's going to have Letang in front of him. Letang goes down. Jeff Petrie's an immediate pickup, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I like Petrie for power play too. I think the upside is definitely capped, and that's kind of baked into the Pittsburgh Penguins here with Letang already there. So maybe we're looking at 30-40. Maybe we're looking at 40, give or take a few. But this is definitely hurts the ceiling for Jeff Petrie. Ty Smith, man, this one's super interesting, and I think great for his dynasty value too, because in New Jersey things were so muddled as far as like who is going to be the top power play of the future. They screwed around with Damon Severson this year. Dougie Hamilton was brought in at $9 million. He was supposed to be the guy, and then they drafted Simon Nemec. They still have Luke Hughes. Like they have options, and Ty Smith getting out of there, where the only guy he really has to compete with, Pierre-Olivier Joseph. That's a much smaller pool of competition, and I think it's going to be good for him. He could be the power play one option of the future. Great trade for his dynasty value.
Do you know what? I also like the acquisition of Ryan Poehling to Pittsburgh. I think
that would be good for his fourth line. Yeah,
I think he could do well. The only thing I'm worried about, is that left side. If he could get up to that second line with Malkin and Rust. Ooh, because screw Jason Zucker. Jason Zucker should have never left Minnesota. Should have never happened. Just doesn't feel right. He doesn't look right wearing black and...
Bill Guerin does not miss. All right, their goaltending. Tristan Jarry, Casey DeSmith. I love getting Jarry late. He usually goes in the double-digit rounds. If I can get him there, I will draft him there and be comfortable with him as my 1G. DeSmith, allergic to volume, allergic to winning. And so Jarry is just chugging starts. I think they're a good team. Jarry's going to benefit from that. I really like Jarry, possibly even as a top 10, top 15 goalie.
I could see top 15. He did have a very solid year last year with a 919 and 242. But you know how I feel about Casey Smith. He wasn't. I didn't even write his name on here anywhere. I don't think. Oh no, actually, hey wait. I swear to God. So I got my Pittsburgh stuff up here. There's one thing on the next page that is Pittsburgh Penguins, and then I go to Washington Capitals. All it says is fuck Casey DeSmith. Swear on my life.
You're not wrong. Jarry last year went at an ADP of 113.2, wound up the sixth best goalie in our 5-hole leagues. That's solid value. Some of the best value. I think Markstrom might have been better value. He finished at the third goalie with a later ADP. Their prospects, they're not doing so hot. They're getting there. They oh my God, I almost said downloaded Owen Pickering. They drafted Owen Pickering this year. They have Samuel Poulin, Nathan Lagar, Pierre-Olivier Joseph, Joel Bonquist, Kalle Klang, just to name a few. I think they still have Valtteri Putistinen, whatever. The future's, it's going to happen, but the window is now. Moving on to Washington. They had one of the sneakiest off seasons. They added Kemper, but they also added Dylan Strome, Eric Gustafsson, Connor Brown, Charlie Lindgren. So I think they had a really good offseason. Questions surrounding the team. What is going on with Nicklas Backstrom? He had hip surgery, hip replacement surgery, or hip resurfacing, as it's called, which, ups the probabilities of his return to hockey. There's only been 2 players who have had the same procedure. Ryan Kessler, who never played another hockey game ever, and Ed Jovanovski, who rehabbed for a full year, played 37 more games, and then retired. I think this could be the end for Nicklas Backstrom. Sad to say.
It's sad.
Really sad.
It's sad.
End of an era, I think. But I think if we're placing bets, and I hate to place this bet, but I think that's probably the end. Tough. Main fantasy targets. This one's almost as easy as Pittsburgh here. It's Ovi, Wilson, Kuznetsov, and then there's kind of a drop. John Carlson, obviously, but as far as the skaters go, Darcy Kemper is going to be a hot commodity. But in terms of the skaters, who else do you like? I think Ovi's Ovi. Wilson's going to be out for, in late May, he had knee surgery, out for 6 to 8 months. He could be back in December to February, so that hurts his redraft value. But what is your read on their forward and defense situation?
I like Dylan Strome.
Yeah?
I do. I like Dylan Strome from before. I liked Dylan Strome when he was on Chicago. And if he had a 57-point pace on Chicago, then you put him on the second line or something cool like that in Washington, then I am all for it. Yeah, good for you, Dylan Strome. Dude, he was worth having before, and now he's in a better situation. I mean, I'm kind of blah on TJ Oshie. Really kind of blah on anyone named TJ today. You know what I mean? So
That's fucked up.
Isn't it, though? I know. I had to do it.
They're both average at fantasy.
So, obviously, I have to say, my boy Tom Wilson, you know what I mean? He's going to be back at some point in time. But one thing I really want to see this year is Connor Brown and where he fits in. I want to see Connor Brown in a Capitals jersey. I love Connor Brown. I think it's good for him that he got to move,
That right wing spot's going to be open until Tom Wilson gets back.
But that's until Tom Wilson comes back. So and the whole thing is, so Connor Sheary, he didn't grab the bull by the horns. You know what I mean? When he had his shot at that top line, and Garnet Hathaway, he hasn't grabbed the bull by the horns. Now they are all streamable people, but I think Connor Brown could take that spot and be like the guy for Alex Ovechkin and Kuznetsov here. Man, that would be a huge third wheel. That would be great.
I'm into that one. I think, with Kuznetsov, who has had an up and down career, there's those questions surrounding Backstrom. So I think Kuznetsov is locked into line one, but I got a tinfoil hat theory for you. Line two, their wingers are a little bit less impressive. It's Mantha and it's Oshie. Why don't they put Dylan Strome with Alexander Ovechkin and Kuznetsov with the second line to up the value of the second line and only drop the value of the top line by a little bit? I don't think it's going to happen, but it's a tinfoil hat theory.
I don't think it's going to happen either.
Maybe after Wilson comes back, because I think Connor Brown and Dylan Strome that's a weak duo.
I don't think you're splitting up the two Russians on that top line.
Yeah,
I don't.
It was just tinfoil hat.
I don't.
Kuznetsov saw 20 minutes for the first time in his career. I think he's 1C. I think he's locked in. Mm-hmm. He had 5 shorthanded points, which is weird for him. He saw a lot of shorthanded time this year for the first time ever. Shots went way up for the first time in his career. He was over 2.5 a game. I think he's good for 75, even more. I like him there. I think 20. What do you have? 27 power play points. That's reliable. He's going to be with Ovi. It makes sense. Who's next? I guess John Carlson.
Well, John Carlson is right behind Ovechkin for me. For me, it goes Ovechkin, then Carlson, and then Evgeny Kuznetsov. Those are my top tier guys, and Kuznetsov is underneath Ovechkin and Carlson.
Carlson, he's always a top D man. He's 65 plus for 5 years straight. He hit 73 times, paced for 89 in his career year. My views on him don't change at all. I think he's a lock for 65 with probability to go even higher. I think it's great. This is where it gets interesting. I feel like you want to go Dylan Strome after this.
Well, I already went Dylan Strome, but I mean, other than, I did say him and you talked about Anthony Mantha. I think Anthony Mantha would obviously be on my list too.
Yeah. Does he get that Tom Wilson spot on the top power play? Or is it Dylan Strome? Because that's going to be open.
I think it's Dylan Strome.
I might go Mantha here.
I think it's Dylan Strome because Strome is pretty damn good at faceoff from what I recall. Let's see. He had a 52% last year. I like that. The year before that, he was under 50%. But
you do have Kuznetsov for that.
What's that?
No, I think they're all lefties, so we can't go that route. It can't be, Backstrom's a lefty, and so is Strome, so that makes sense. They're all lefties. So it's going to be interesting to see who finally gets that. I think if he does get that top power play deployment, he could have a really good year. He's a 50-point guy. I think there's upside for 55 to 60 if he takes power play one out of the gate and runs with it. If it turns into one of those if it's not broke, don't fix it scenarios, I think he can be a 60-point guy, but I think he's probably a 50-point guy.
Can I interest you in an Eric Gustafsson?
I don't know. Power play 2, man, like that's some Justin Schultz shit. I don't care. You know what I mean?
Power play 2 isn't out there much. I'll give you that. And when you have John Carlson in front of you, you might not get on the ice that much. I can see that.
It was a good move. I think he'll have 1 or 2 weeks of a streak. We might bring him up as a streamer, but I don't know. Can we bitch about TJ Oshie? Because I hate him in fantasy. I don't know why people are obsessed with him.
I already said blah. I'm blah on TJ.
He does
Oshie.
nothing good. He does nothing well. He shoots twice a game. He hits once a game, maybe more.
He's okay.
He's a 55-point guy. Everybody talks about him. I went through the Discord. People were like, should I drop Tage Thompson for TJ Oshie? Should I drop Ryan O'Reilly for TJ Oshie? Michael Bunting, Jonathan Marchessault?
No.
This is ridiculous. I went through all of TJ Oshie's career years in different stats, and I put together his best possible season. 33 goals, 39 assists for what's that? 72 points, 188 shots, 18 power play points, 149 hits, 62 blocks. That's
okay.
A Blake Coleman. Peak Blake Coleman. He's rosterable, but he's middle of he's a middling guy. The guy he is right now, he's bottom of your lineup. The only reason I'm mad and I'm talking shit on TJ, I think he's good, but I want to end the stigma that he is valuable. I get the right wing thing. I'll concede that, right wing's shallow, but people are jizzing to pick this guy up all over the place. He's 3-year average has him at 2 shots a game, 30 goals, 30 assists for 60 points, and just over a hit a game. That's boring, man. Especially if you're points only. There's so many better players you can go.
I am by no means any nicer in my notes. In fact, I might be a little verbally more mean.
I think the only streamer level players we didn't talk about streamer level. We talked about Connor Brown, Connor Sheary. There's another Connor McMichael could make an appearance. Martin Fevari, he's one of my favorites for hits and blocks. I think he's top pairing with Carlson, so that's great for his potential even strength pointage.
And Orlov will do that shit too.
Orlov's good for that. Hathaway too, man. The guy bangs. So let's move to their goaltending. Lindgren is not a 1B. So I think Kemper, health allowing, is good for 60 plus starts. And the quality stats aren't even going to drop that much by way of Evolving Hockey's expected goals against. Avs had the 6th best defense. Capitals were 9th. So really, it's not that big of a change. The insulation is still going to be there. The offensive support's still going to be there. Not as prevalent, but it's still going to be there. So the only thing that's keeping Kemper from 60 starts is Kemper. And I think he could be a really valuable fantasy goalie. Not as much as last year, but that's what happens when you go from the Stanley Cup winning team to a first round exit team. Did they make the second round? I forget.
They did, I think. I'm pretty damn sure. Yeah, they did. Yes, they did.
No, I think, didn't they get ousted by the New York Rangers? I don't know. Now
you got me.
All right, I'll get into the Islanders. Before that, I think the prospects in Washington, they're okay. They drafted Ivan Miroshnichenko this year, downloaded him. And then they got Hendrix Lapierre. They got Connor McMike. They got Alexei Protas. Yeah, that's what it is.
They lost to the Panthers.
Yeah. All right, there it is. Yeah, I remember that now. Okay. All right. New York Islanders, man, they didn't do anything in free agency at all, essentially. They got a new head coach in Lane Lambert. He's been with Barry Trotz since 2011. Middling results. I'm afraid that he is just a Barry Trotz incarnate, but I think he's going to give a little more time to the new guys. So I want to know, do you think Matt Barzell comes back to relevance? Do you think guys like Oliver Wahlstrom get a God's honest chance? What are you thinking here?
Man, I just don't give a shit about the New York Islanders. Seriously, they're so fucking vanilla, man.
Yeah.
Matt Barzell, yes, I am interested in having Matt Barzell on my team because I think that he is legit a very fantastic player. But the thing is, he's a fantastic hockey player. He's not always fantastic for fantasy, but he's okay.
He's a tough own in categories too.
But the New York Islanders were number 23 in goals per game last year. The Buffalo Sabres were in front of them. You know what I mean? They were number 30 on shots on goal per game last year. They are so bad. Like, but they're not supposed to be bad
for fantasy.
Yeah, they're so bad for fantasy. They're a NHL team, but they're boring. You're boring. But somehow they have the number 12 power play. I don't fucking get it. But
who are you drafting first, Brock Nelson or Matt Barzell?
Matt Barzell.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Nelson had a really sneaky year.
Oh my God, I'm not drafting
goals.
Brock Nelson over Matt Barzell, though. Jesus.
I might. I think there's an argument there. He had 37 goals, 67-point pace. Unless Lane Lambert does something crazy for Matt Barzell, they are about the same point pace, but Brock Nelson just scores a shit ton more goals.
It's hard for me to not pick the better hockey player. I get it. I get it. But Barzell, he's just a better hockey player.
Yeah, I think without Trotz there, like he's not the third line center anymore. So, having Barzell and Nelson as your 1-2 or maybe even 2-1 is going to be pretty good. I think it's solid. Anders Lee, I have no idea what kind of year we're going to get. Something tells me we'll get, a 30, 20, 50-point campaign out of him with hits and shots. Noah Dobson, man. I'm excited about this kid.
Me too.
50 points under Barry Trotz. That's good enough to make your resume. Like, that should make you take notice.
5 extra minutes time on ice.
That'll do it.
You know what I mean? That's huge.
Yeah. Lane Lambert's going to dictate a lot of what happens to this team fantasy-wise. Trotz was no good for it. His defensive system was no good for fantasy. I'm hoping Lane Lambert gives a shit about offense. There's still time. I think the Islanders have money to play with. Maybe they can go out and get like a Tarasenko. But I think if they would have done it by now, because Tarasenko prevented St. Louis from making a pitch to Johnny Gadreau. They prevented them being able to make a real pitch. But I mean, it's hard to beat Florida's offer. But for Tkachuk, I think there was stuff that they couldn't keep Perron. Like, I think they would have wanted to move him, and I think Tarasenko would be really fun on the Islanders. But I don't know. There's not much left here. Like, I think those are the guys that we're drafting: Nelson, Dobson, Barzell, and Lee. As far as skaters go, the streamers, however, there's a lot of them, like JGP, Anthony Beauvillier, Oliver Wahlstrom, Ryan Pulak.
JGP is another Andrew Mangiapane. I'm tired of JGP.
He hits and blocks and takes faceoffs, man.
Tired of JGP.
I'm all for it.
He does hit and block and everything. I get it. I get it for the Cats and all that. But man, he is supposed to be more. If we see a 50-point season, then I'll be surprised. Actually, he's not a 50-point player. That's the thing.
He's just so dominant in the peripherals. That's what it is. Like, not dominant in any category, but good enough in all of the categories to be very valuable. So he's a poor man's Blake Coleman. Then I'd rather have Blake Coleman. Blake Coleman is a poor man's Blake Coleman anymore. I need more from you, Blake. Go back to Jersey. I think JGP in a points league is not interesting. Beauvillier, you are guilty until proven innocent. Now, you were innocent until proven guilty. You run out of time. Should get off the pot. You're still on the pot. All right, goaltending. Sorokin, I think he finally sees true volume. Like, he was the only goalie inside the FHFH top 10 to have less than 30 wins. He's also had the fewest games played out of anybody there. I think he's a true talent, raw talent, and I think Lambert is going to let him see 60 games, maybe 55. I don't know. It's only 2 more than he had, or 3 more maybe. I forget if it was 52 or 53, but I think we get true volume. I think this tandem's gone too.
And any goalie that plays for the Islanders is going to have a shot at shutouts. Their team defense plays into it very well. Varley and Sorokin were both able to get shutouts, and hell, Sorokin had 7 of them this year.
Definitely a solid goalie. Should be targeting him. Hopefully at good value. Let's see where that value is. The prospects, they are not that good. I could only think of Atsu Ratu and William Dufour, maybe. Michael Darcole didn't really pan out. Kiefer Bellows is still there. Oliver Wahlstrom graduated. Bodie Wild has just been sinking. It's weird. It's going to be a weird one. But I think that's it, man. We got what?
Huzzah.
That's it for the teams. All right. So later on in the week, we're going to have Carolina, New York Rangers, Philadelphia, and the New Jersey Devils to talk about. The very anticipated Philadelphia preview. Been looking forward to that one.
Yeah, we're talking about them next week because they're at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, guys, that's it for us. If you guys are digging the shows, if there's anything you want to hear, hit us up on Twitter, or you can leave a review for us on iTunes. That would be rad. Rating, review, that whole thing. We like reading them. It's been a lot of fun getting them. You can join the Fantasy Hockey Discord. I put something up on Reddit in the r/fantasy hockey. We got like 80 new members overnight, which is nuts. We're almost at 1,500. So if you guys want to get in on the Fantasy Hockey Discord, do that, because there's a ton of people in there talking fantasy hockey all hours of the day, all hours of the night. But if there's anything you want to hear on the next episode, hit us up on Twitter at FHF Hockey. Keep an eye out for our mock draft video on YouTube. And until next time, we love yous.
Love yous.
Woo!
Adios, turd nuggets.